single dad gave up his seat for a woman. Moments later, a billionaire changed his fate. If you've ever been invisible to the world, stay with me, because this is the kind of moment that can change everything. The bus was packed, the kind of crowded where breaths mixed and time felt heavier than usual. Rain streaked down the windows like the city itself was tired of holding things in. Daniel Reyes stood near the back, one arm wrapped around the metal pole, the other holding a worn backpack that carried everything he owned, and everything he loved. Inside that backpack was a small lunchbox with a crooked superhero sticker, a folded drawing of a house with a sun too big for the sky, and a note written in shaky pencil, "I love you, Daddy." Daniel was 32, a widower, and a single father to 5-year-old Leo. Every morning, he took this bus across town after dropping Leo at school, heading to his second job cleaning offices at night. The first job barely paid enough to keep the lights on. The second one kept hope alive. At the next stop, a woman stepped on. She was pregnant, clearly so, and holding her lower back like every step was a negotiation with pain. Her coat was thin, her face pale, and her eyes scanned the bus, searching for an empty seat that didn't exist. People looked away. Daniel felt the familiar tug in his chest, the one that always came when doing the right thing meant making things harder. His legs already ached from a 12-hour shift. He hadn't slept much. And that seat he had grabbed earlier. It felt like a miracle. He stood up anyway. "Please," he said gently, tapping the seat. "Take mine." The woman blinked, surprised. "Oh, no, I couldn't. It's okay," Daniel smiled, already stepping back. "I'm getting off soon." She hesitated, then sat, eyes shining with relief. "Thank you." "Truly." Daniel nodded and returned to standing, gripping the pole tighter as the bus lurched forward. That's when he noticed the man watching him. The man was seated a few rows ahead, dressed simply but neatly, dark coat, polished shoes, calm posture. He didn't look rich. He didn't look important. But his eyes carried something sharp and thoughtful, like he was measuring the world quietly. Their eyes met for a brief second, then the bus stopped suddenly. The pregnant woman gasped as her bag slipped. Daniel reacted without thinking, stepping forward, steadying her before she could fall. The man in the dark coat stood too, helping gather her things. "Thank you," she whispered, shaken. As the bus settled, the man turned to Daniel. "You didn't hesitate," he said. "Not many people do." Daniel shrugged. It was the right thing. The man smiled faintly, as if that answer confirmed something he already knew. When Daniel reached his stop, he stepped off into the rain, thinking nothing of the moment. He didn't know that a single choice, one seat, had just placed his life on a different path. 3 days later, Daniel was scrubbing a marble floor in a downtown office building when his phone buzzed. He almost ignored it. Calls usually meant bills or problems, but something made him stop. "Hello," he answered, breathless. "Daniel Reyes," a calm voice asked. "Yes. This is Margaret Hale, assistant to Victor Langford. Mr. Langford would like to meet you." Daniel frowned. "I think you have the wrong number." "No," she replied kindly. "He met you on a bus. You gave up your seat." Daniel's hand tightened around the mop handle. Yes, but I don't understand." "Mr. Langford is the founder of Langford Industries," she continued. "He's also a billionaire. And he doesn't forget moments that matter." The world seemed to tilt. 2 days later, Daniel stood in a glass-walled office overlooking the city. Everything felt unreal, the silence, the view, the man standing by the window with his hands folded behind his back. Victor Langford turned slowly. "You didn't know who I was," he said. "That's why I wanted to meet you." Daniel swallowed. "Sir, I didn't do anything special." Victor smiled. "You gave something up when no one was watching. That's rare." They talked for over an hour. Daniel spoke about Leo. About losing his wife. About working 2 jobs and still falling behind. He didn't ask for help. He never once hinted at needing anything. That impressed Victor more than any resume ever could. At the end of the meeting, Victor slid a folder across the desk. "Inside is a job offer," he said. "Day hours. Training included. Enough pay to change your situation." Daniel's hands trembled as he opened it, and, Victor added, "There's a scholarship fund for your son. Consider it an investment in the future." Tears blurred Daniel's vision. "Why?" he whispered. Victor looked out the window again. "Because years ago, when I had nothing, someone gave up their seat for me. It reminded me who I wanted to be, and who I never wanted to forget. Months later, Daniel walked Leo to school without rushing, sunlight warming their backs. That night, he read him a bedtime story without checking the clock. One small act of kindness had rewritten their lives, not because it was rewarded, but because it was real. Stay with me, because this is where you see what a single act of kindness becomes when it's given room to grow. Success didn't arrive loudly in Daniel's life. It came quietly, like sunrise, slow, steady, and impossible to ignore. Once it was there, the new job challenged him. Daniel struggled at first, learning systems he'd never touched before, sitting in meetings where people used words that made him feel small. Some nights, doubt crept in, whispering that he didn't belong in glass offices and tailored rooms. But every evening, when he came home early enough to help Leo with homework, that doubt softened. Victor Langford didn't treat Daniel like charity. He treated him like potential. You weren't hired because you're lucky, Victor told him one afternoon. You were hired because you showed character when there was no benefit attached. That sentence stayed with Daniel. Months passed. Daniel grew confident. He learned fast. He asked questions. He worked with the same dedication he once used to scrub floors at midnight. Soon, others noticed, not his past, but his presence. One rainy evening, Daniel boarded a bus again. Same route. Same city sounds. This time, he was tired, but hopeful. At the next stop, a young man stepped on, nervous, clutching a folder. No empty seats. The moment felt familiar. Daniel stood up. Here, he said, smiling. You look like you need it. The young man hesitated. Thank you. I have a job interview. First one in months. Daniel nodded. Good luck. Just be yourself. As the bus rolled forward, Daniel caught his reflection in the window. He wasn't invisible anymore, but he remembered when he was. That night, Leo asked, Daddy, are we rich now? Daniel laughed softly, pulling him close. Not the way people think. Then he added, but we're safe. And we're kind. And that's the best kind of rich there is. Somewhere across the city, Victor Langford looked at a report Daniel had prepared and smiled, not at the numbers, but at the name on the page. A seat once given had become a life changed, and a life changed was already changing others.